I think it's incumbent on you, and the burden is on you to make sure that you fight hard enough and scrap and keep swinging until you get, you know, a version of that movie that you can call your own.
You said something where you will take the creative control over the big budget.
Absolutely.
And I completely agree with that, because to me it's I mean, you know, there was a quote by Kazan. When Kazan was dying or toward the end, they asked him, what would you do differently? And he, as a director.
Right.
And
besides rat everybody out.
Rat everybody out. He should have said, I wouldn't rat
anybody out.
My friends. But what he said was, like, I would have started in the editing room. Which I think, backing into it from an editorial perspective, which is obviously something that you've had, anybody who's made a low-budget movie has to do. Otherwise, you don't get the material that you need.
Oh, no question.
So that's sort of backing into it editorially, in a, for lack of a better reference, in a Hitchcockian sort of way, a design way, can be torturous if all of a sudden a bunch of suits come in at the 11th hour and undo it, right? So how do you deal with that?
I mean, listen, I think you know, I don't really, where I lose my temper is in those instances. Like, I remember telling, like, Tom Rothman, I was so close to punching him out after this one preview of the A-Team, because I thought he was being incredibly disrespectful, and I love that guy, I really do. I love Tom, and we stayed very close, but there were real battles on that, and there were real fights over that, and I think, you know, in the end, I think if you're going to fight ferociously for something and to the death and tooth and nail, it's got to be for your vision. It's got to be for what you want it to be. But at the same time, you must listen and trust those people around you. I mean, listen, The Gray, when I first did it, I did a cut of The Gray. It was 2 hours and 23 minutes, right? I got it down to an hour and whatever it was. And what I did was we turned it from, I shouldn't say a very almost introspective art film into more of a thriller with these elements of kind of God and mortality, and all these things that interest me as a man now at 43 that didn't interest me as a man at 33 or 23, you know? So, but if I didn't have guys like Roger Barton, who's this brilliant editor, and Jason Hellman and Kevin Hale, these guys around me that I trusted to make these decisions and to say, just look at this, you know, and I'd gotten so wound up in that, then I would have cut myself off. And I think the difference, I guess I'm trying to make the distinction between have this really fierce sense of your vision and what you want, but allow that to be informed by others, and don't stick to it so doggedly that you shoot yourself in the foot, and then reload and shoot yourself in the other foot, because you're holding to these precepts and these notions that are precious to you and important to you, but aren't really doing your work any good. You know what I mean? Aren't furthering the movie.
And I think that shows a sign of maturity, because I think to be open to ideas, because I think when you're a younger artist, your tendency is to be like, any idea that's not my own is not, you know,
very
I'm not
proprietary.
Right. And I think a smarter creative person listens, but then ultimately decides and filters what.
And listen, I think a great idea can come from anywhere. I've had heads give me really good ideas.
Right.
You never know. It's like the golden acorn, you know, with the blind squirrel. So it's like, but I think that the mistake is to think that I always say this, it's like, I don't know, I don't have all the answers all the time. I just hope I have the right ones when I need them, you know. And sometimes that doesn't work. And sometimes you have to audible, and sometimes you have to change your way of thinking. And I think that, more than any other quality, Jack, that being adaptable and being facile within the moment has saved my ass. Because I don't think I'm the smartest, most creative guy. I don't. I think I know my limitations, but I also know I bust my ass and I work really hard. And to me, that evens things out, you know, because I put a lot of work into it, and I don't. And you know, the last script I wrote, I just wrote like kind of a reimagining of Death Wish. I worked hard on that script that I've worked in years, you know, it was hard. And it's really good, it should be. I busted my ass, but I think that oftentimes is, to me, what will allow me to kind of equalize that a bit and feel good about, okay, you don't have to be all these things, but you got to work hard. And
my whole thing has always been that if you're working for somebody who, an executive producer, say, who isn't a filmmaker in and of himself, but at least understands that he should hire somebody who knows what he's doing. That, in the end, he has the right to be opinionated because he's paying for the movie, but to ultimately be deferential, if only because the filmmaker knows a little more. I mean,
you don't know these things, and that's okay. And when did it become like like a sign of weakness to say I don't know. What the hell's the point of hiring a creative person to begin with if you're going to micromanage every part of that process? You know, when you want to watch every stitch go in. It's like I never understood that. It's like there's a great mammoth in the book. I think it's True and False. This great kind of analogy between the administrator and the artist, and why the administrator at the end of the day wants to be the artist, and so their proximity to that process is as close as they're ever going to get. So that there's a natural tendency to become meddlesome and to try to screw around with what that is, because it fascinates them because they don't understand it. And I think I see both the great truth in that, and then the kind of the reductive quality, the dismissive quality of like, go away.
Do you bemoan the loss of something like the director's cut, which means that you don't ultimately have the choice to whereas where a choice is going to be, smashed, where a choice is going to be rammed down your throat whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I'm wondering, listen, by its very definition is the director's cut, and I asked this question without having the answer, but by its very definition, is it a concession? Are you saying, I didn't fight hard enough to get a version that I could say was mine, therefore I'm going to opt to this I'm going to plan B it and give you this other version, and to me it's almost like I don't know, it seems a bit disrespectful to what we do, as the older I get, the more I think about it. I mean, when we were young, it's like, not that we're old now, but much younger men. It's like when you were always told the director's cut was like that was like the apex of that was Ridley Scott's director's cut of Blade Runner. And I understand incredibly contentious film shoots such as that were difficult and where the lead actor and the director stopped talking after 3 weeks, and all these great stories about Blade Runner. Which are all true, which have all been verified. I get where you'd have the level of kind of vitriol that you'd say, "F you, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to show another version of this movie." But I think in this day and age, I think it's incumbent on you, and the burden is on you to make sure that you fight hard enough and scrap and keep swinging until you get a version of that movie that you can call your own, and not with this adjoiner. After the fact, this addendum to, there's my director's cut. You know what I mean?
Right,
I mean,
totally.
I think that seems the smarter play as opposed to setting aside some other thing that,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
And
totally.
also, it's like, I believe in that kind of cohesion of it feels awfully fragmented, too. If it's like, well, we really couldn't get our together, so here's this version, here's that version. Here's the unrated version. Here's, and I do, I get it. Listen, for DVD sales and for that, which is a diminishing market, I get that you want these different versions because it's revenue. But I think just creatively, it feels a bit, far afield and a bit, fractional.
Get your film fix. Subscribe to CineFix.